Welcome to the School of Christian Mysticism. Today we're going to record a conversation, Joe and I, which continues our reflections on the Gospel of Thomas. So we're going to initially read the section that we're focusing on today, which is verses 11 to 14 inclusive. We'll read that between us and then we'll have a discussion of whatever thoughts arise to us based on that. We've not prepared anything, so this is all spontaneous. And then we'll have a final reading before the end of the recording. Tim can't be with us today, but he may well wish to add something into this, into the final recording. So Joe will start us off.
Yeshua said, "This sky will pass away, and the one above it will also pass away. The dead have no life, and the living have no death. On days when you ate what was dead, you made it alive. When you are in the light, what will you do? When you were one, you created two. But now that you are two, what will you do?" The disciples said to Yeshua, "We know that you will leave us. Who will be great among us then?" Yeshua told them, "When you find yourselves at that point, go to James the just. All that concerns heaven and earth is his domain."
Yeshua said to his disciples, "What am I like for you? To what would you compare me?" Simon Peter said, "You are like a righteous angel." Matthew said, "You are like a wise philosopher." Thomas said, "Master, my mouth could never utter what you are like." Yeshua told him, "I am no longer your master because you have drunk and have become drunken from the same bubbling source from which I spring." Then he took him aside and said 3 words to him. When Thomas returned to his companions, they questioned him, "What did Yeshua tell you?" Thomas answered, "If I told you even one of the things he said to me, you would pick up stones and throw them at me, and fire would come out of those stones and consume you." Yeshua said to them, "If you fast, you will be at fault. If you pray, you will be wrong. If you give to charity, you will corrupt your mind. When you go into any land and walk through the countryside, if they welcome you, eat whatever they offer you. You can heal their sick. It is not what goes into your mouth that defiles you. It is what comes out of your mouth that defiles you."
remember when Tim and you were talking last week, so you had that sense of entering meditation straight away, just hearing those words. And it's like that, isn't it? They're
Mm.
so potent. The mind scrambles quite quickly, but there's a sort of potency, there's a vibration which kind of you can feel.
Yes, it makes it quite difficult to speak conceptually about it because you just want to rest in the words. It's
Yes, yes,
yeah, but there are things there that spring out.
mm,
When you were one with a capital O, when you were one, you created two. But now that you are two, what will you do?
yes,
it, it, you can just rest in that, or we're here really to sort of think about it. And what what that makes me think about is what it means to be two. I mean, really, of course, there is only one, and the idea that there are two, that we are some kind of separate individual
mm,
being,
mm,
is of course an illusion. Everything is in God, and we can't do anything at all without God. We can't even think without God. We couldn't
yeah,
be speaking now without God. We can't pray
mm,
without God. And that that's the delusion we have, though, that we are a separate, self-willed ego that's in some way there is us and there is God, and that just can't be true.
yes,
We create that in our heads,
yes,
and what will you do now that you are two? Well, we have to go back to the one because we can't live in this state of delusion. And I kind of relate that to 14 as well, which at first seems mysterious. If you fast, you will be at fault. If you pray, you will be wrong. If you give to charity, you will corrupt your mind. And for me, what that's about is if you imagine that you are the doer,
yes, yeah,
that it's you that is fasting, that it's you that is
yes,
praying, that it's you that gives to charity. If you think you give to charity, that makes you think you're a special person
yes,
because
yeah,
look how charitable I am. You will corrupt your mind, and that's all in the delusional state of, again, of being a separate being.
yes.
We, yeah.
It, what do you think then in verse 14, just following your train of thought there, that next part, when you go into any land and walk through the countryside, if they welcome you, eat whatever they offer you. You can heal the sick, you can heal their sick. Is that a giving up of control? Do you think that it's not you or me doing whatever we want anymore? We're eating what we're given. Um, yeah, we're in, as it were, submission or surrender, um, rather than trying to be in control. And you can heal their sick as a result.
Yes, it seems like that, doesn't it? It
Mm.
follows on quite naturally.
But why do you think Yeshua uses the word do? Going back to verse 11, but now that you are two, what will you do? if we're not supposed to do anything, it's almost like a joke. I can imagine him sitting there with a smile on his face. Now I've got you, kind of thing. This is a Zen koan.
Well, it contrasts, doesn't it, with the couple of lines above, when you're in the light, what will you do?
Yes.
And now that you are two, what will you do?
Yes, yeah,
It is a koan, isn't it?
it is.
When you're in the light, you'll do nothing. God does everything.
That's it, really, isn't it? There is nothing to do.
When you imagine that you're separate, you think that you are the doer, that you can do things.
I was talking to someone yesterday, reminding ourselves about the some Sufi teaching from Hazrat Inayat Khan about what he calls desire, wish, and will. And he says that notice what your desire is as it emerges, almost as a sensation, as a embryonic urge. It might be a desire for something very mundane, but it also may be a desire to create something beautiful or to be enlightened. And he says, then formulate it into a wish. When you bring it to consciousness, you formulate it into a wish and you water it by just having enough concentration on it, but not too much. Don't become obsessed. And he says, then in time, it will become will. It will happen, as at the beginning of the world, God said, let there be light, and there was light. And I just wondered about that apparent paradox almost, especially as in the Buddhist teaching, one has this perhaps that the word desire is not desirable. Um, um, what is our how do we reconcile these two to have to bring forth that which is in us, um, but but to but to but to not do? Or what are we what are we being asked here? Are we being asked to do or not do?
I suppose ultimately what you love is what you are. If you love this material world, then you are a part of this material world. I mean, we are anyway in some kind of a way, but to love it and think that everything we can get our joy and satisfaction from that is defeating, because everything is transient. The sky will pass away.
Yes.
The one above it will also pass away. That's quite a mysterious statement.
Mm-hmm.
if we love God, if we're orientated to God,
Yes.
then that's all. Maybe that's the only choice we can make. Which way
Yes.
our love is orientated. Maybe that's the one choice that we can make. And if we turn to God, then God lifts us up and brings us to Him. Maybe that's all we can do. I don't know.
To focus our love on God.
Yeah.
Mm. Last week, we were exploring you and Tim, and then us as a group. Do not do that which is against your love. There's something
Mm.
about that, isn't it?
Mm.
It
Yeah.
could almost be against your love with a capital L.
Yeah. You're loving God. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm. You're the beloved.
Yeah. 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 Not about loving this or that thing,
Mm.
but
Yes.
love as love. Yeah.
Yes. Mm.
Divine love.
Mm.
What is it that's above the sky? The one above it will also pass away, do we think?
Sort of ticked that off in my mind. Above the sky, a sort of heaven. Well, I suppose that which transcends duality, the unity, I suppose. The sky will pass away, and the one above it will also pass away. Because what you said just now, that everything is transient. It's not.
Mm.
It's not the one with a capital O in this case.
No, no, it's a small one. I suppose it's in the context of thinking that there are a series of heavens. Mm.
A series of planes. One
Yeah,
we
yeah,
might think in another
yeah,
terminology. Yeah.
yeah. Leading us into the dead have no life and the living have no death.
Yes. Into the
It
deathless realm.
reminds me of Jesus when he was calling his disciples, saying, "Let the dead bury their own dead," which
Yes,
is actually quite a shocking
it is.
statement. You never hear people really preaching about that very much in church
Yeah,
because I think people find that difficult. But of course, it's about being spiritually dead. It's people who think that they are too. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, about leaving the death, leaving the deadness of oneself. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Because outwardly, it's shocking, isn't it? Because in a Middle Eastern country, you would bury your dead very fast
Mm,
because of tradition and the heat, I guess. But we need that kind of shock, don't we? We need that kind of shocking comment
mm,
because this week I've become very immersed in certain uh, things to do with my mother's care that have needed to be sorted out, just in a kind of mundane way, and we need that kind of we'll let the dead. No, I'm not suggesting my mum's dead,
mm,
but let a certain level of things um, sort itself out,
Mm.
rather than feel that one has to manipulate everything.
It's a bit like reading the news every day when there's absolutely nothing we can do about it.
Yes,
Somehow,
yes,
'cause I get quite obsessed with the news. No, trying to do something about that really, because you get cross about things that you have no control about whatsoever.
yes, yes. Thank God for prayer.
Mm.
It's something we can do.
Well, God sends the prayer to help us.
Mm,
And as we were saying earlier, I'm not sure that we can do it, but thank
no,
God, thank God for prayer is a good way to put it. Yeah.
yes.
We don't know how to pray. Paul said that, didn't
Yes, and yet he also said pray without ceasing. So yeah, we
he?
don't.
That's the state of being one with God, though, isn't it? Then you do pray. You have it's automatically pray without ceasing,
Mm-hmm.
I
Yes, when it
suppose.
is praying you, when the prayer is
Mm.
praying you. Yes.
Mm.
Well, I'm feeling for the disciples in verse 12, and we the disciples saying to Yeshua, "We know that you will leave us. Who will be great among us then?" And although one could um, link that with the disciples in the canonical Gospels um, jockeying for position in heaven, sort of thing, I felt I felt that's what it's like when there's the presence of the Christ on earth, and that extraordinary atmosphere and aura. Um, I've heard it said that where a great being has lived or taught, like the Buddha or the Christ, uh, that that their being has and their aura has is so huge that it's that is that it's kind of miles. We're not just talking about something small, and I, I was I was feeling for the disciples when you know that we know that you will leave us. Who will be great among us there? And perhaps that feeling of greatness in the presence of the Master who's incarnate. It, um, and I wondered, uh, Jesus points them to when you find yourselves at that point, go to James the Just. All that concerns heaven and earth is his domain. I don't know whether this is under the one above that passes away or not. I don't know, but I'm always interested in that word just or justification, which comes up a lot in certainly the New Testament readings, and um, about that idea of justification as we have it on a page, to justify to the left or justify to the right. But it seems to me it's about alignment, um, and I wondered if that might be some sort of meaning there, to go to that person or source that can help you to realign so that you can continue to feel that greatness.
Yes, I'm sure it's not simply Yeshua appointing a successor to be in
Mm.
charge of everything. That's too
Literal.
too too literal, too trite. Yes,
Mm.
um, it's got a spiritual meaning, that something like you were outlining, I think. Of course, he's not actually leaving in any spiritual sense, anyway. Um,
Mm.
they're just as much or more, maybe,
Yes.
um, after being crucified and
Mm.
rising again through the
Mm.
Holy Spirit. Is just as much with them or more with them than he was before from a spiritual point of view.
Mm.
Um, I think you're right. It's so with all great spiritual leaders. It was like this. It was recorded actually with Ramana Maharshi, who I'm interested in when
Mm.
he died, because it was relative. It was in the 50s, and his disciples said to him, "What are we going to do? Well, you're
Yes.
dying. You
Yeah.
died of cancer. What are we going to do? You're dying.
Yeah.
How will we manage? How will we cope?" He
Yeah.
said, I'm not going anywhere.
Mm.
This body will die, but I'm not going anywhere.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm still absolutely with you. Whether
Yes.
you're in this ashram or whether you're on the other side of the world, whether I'm alive, whether I'm dead, makes no
Yes.
difference whatsoever.
Yes.
Mm.
Yeah. It's beyond the veil, isn't it? It's like
Mm.
knowing that that eternity is here and now. It's very inspiring, very exciting,
Mm.
really.
Christ is living with us now.
Do you think in the next number 13 here, when the disciple, he's asking, "What am I like for you?" to the disciples, and they the various answers, and then Thomas speaks and hears something totally different. It's very, "I am no longer your master because you have drunk and become drunken from the same bubbling source from which I spring." But that seems what we're talking about, that realization of eternity and the ever
Yeah,
living.
it's become one with the one.
Mm.
And said then the mysterious words, three
Mm.
words he said.
Are we to debate what they were?
No,
I
no,
put
I
in
don't think
mind.
so. I don't think so.
That would be a real distraction, wouldn't it? But why that last bit? Why would we want to? Thomas answered, if I told you even one of the things he said to me, you would pick up stones and throw them at me, and fire would come out of those stones and consume you. Um, why do we pick up stones and throw and wish to damage this eternal life, this bubbling source in that's in somebody else or ourselves?
I don't know. I don't know. That's very mysterious. Maybe one of the people who joins us in the meditation on Monday will be able to say something more about that.
Quite likely.
I'm very conscious that we're just having this conversation, but all of the others have got equally or even more valid
Yeah,
things and points to
yeah.
make, which um, we don't claim either of us, I think, to be the fountain of knowledge and wisdom.
No, not
We're
that.
just the front face. That's all right. Yeah.
We are. We're the just a beginning of a conversation, aren't we? And a
Mm.
continuation, really.
But that is a mystery. Why would Thomas think that the disciples would pick up stones and throw them at him, and fire would come out of the stones and consume them? It
Mm,
would it would kill them. It would,
yeah, reminds me of Jesus, where we left it last time. I have sown fire upon the world, and now I tend it to a blaze.
yeah, yes,
I remember you and Tim, and then in the group talking about, that. That's how radical
yeah,
our response to our egoic limitations must be. And that's the we might throw stones, our egos might throw stones to try and suppress the voice of the eternal. But the Christ comes with his fire, really, uh, and consumes
yeah.
again. The blaze comes forth.
Consumes the ego self.
Mm.
But that would be a good thing.
It would be a good thing.
This is put as though it's not a good thing. I suppose they're not ready for it.
No, yes, he's just warning them, isn't he? If I told you
Mm,
one of those things, you would pick up stones and throw them at me, but you'd be consumed by fire.
mm. You're not ready.
Yeah,
When you go into any land and walk through the countryside, if they welcome you, eat whatever they offer you. It's not what goes into your mouth that defiles you. Of course, I mean, that's talking about the religious imperatives for what you eat. But I had a similar conversation yesterday evening, actually, with a group of Ramana Maharshi's people, and they were talking about the Jains in India. And the Jains are monks and nuns are absolute mendicants. They beg for their food. They walk around and just hold their hands out, and people put
Yes.
food in their hands because in that culture that's what people do. And I'm aware that Jains have very, very strict dietary rules. And I was saying, well, how do they? How can they just put their hand out and eat whatever's put in their hand? And the consensus seemed to be that people would only give them food that they knew was suitable because people respect them so much they wouldn't put anything awful into their hands. Sorry, I'm being a bit literal here, aren't I? But eat whatever they offer you.
I think again it was a radical thing to have said, wasn't it? Because of the dietary rules.
Yeah.
You said.
Yes. And they were very strict, weren't they? I mean, even today the rules are very strict, and I know that there are people who go around restaurants whose job it is to actually check whether the food is kosher or not. And it's very, very strict and very detailed. They go into enormous. So it is radical. It's very, very radical. Just take whatever comes. I mean, it's not just about food, of course, as I think you said earlier. Just take whatever life brings.
Yes, that's pretty. Sorry.
No. If they welcome you. If they don't welcome you, you just wander off somewhere else.
Shake the dust off your feet.
Yeah. Again, much of these reflect the canonical gospels, don't they? But there seem to be a development of them, or
Yes.
perhaps the other way around, that the canonical gospels are actually a simplification of this.
Yeah. Yes, maybe simplification concretization.
Yeah. But the radical thing is that if you just go forth in your life and take whatever comes, then you can heal less sick.
Do you understand that?
No. Do you?
Well, of course, I don't understand any of it really and truly deeply. um, but what occurs to me is so many people I speak with who are on the spiritual path and going through this time of challenge and change and transition. And it's very hard not to kind of say, why me? So there is something about that as I think you said earlier on, we have to live the life that we're given and assume it's sacred rather than try to find the sacred elsewhere, sort of thing, as if it was a mistake that we're where we are or whatever it is. um, that that um, that transformational process, which is fiery, which is burns away um, the dross. It gives healing power, the power to heal, doesn't it? I'm I have the image in my mind of, again, it's Sufi Hazrat Naik Khan. He was walking along a street in a city one day in India, and there was a beggar woman sitting on the curb, I think it was, and she was chewing, masticating a mouthful of something, and the people that were with him saw the exchange, and I think that maybe he explained afterwards, but she um, she was not very attractive in worldly terms, one might think. And suddenly there was some sort of exchange between him and her, and suddenly she took out of her mouth this sort of bolus and handed it to him, and immediately he put it in his mouth, and it was a transmission from a highly advanced person, and as I understood it, and something about that. If we truly chew our life, uh, um, it becomes a healing. It becomes a very powerful um, medicine.
Yeah. I suppose there's a difference between healing and curing as well.
Yes,
We always think of curing the sick, like making an whatever illness they've got,
yes,
putting their body back to what we would
mm,
call normal.
mm,
Um, whereas healing is, I suppose, helping people, not helping people, but yeah, helping people to feel that what's happening is what's supposed to be happening, and to accept what is happening in their bodies and to their bodies,
mm,
even if it's painful.
mm,
And that's again is accepting what life brings you,
mm,
eating whatever you're offered.
mm,
And it's the same with illness in a way. It's the cross. It's carrying the cross.
yes,
Um, and it only becomes suffering if you regard it as suffering.
mm,
If you simply regard it as what's happening,
yes,
then it's not suffering.
yes,
It's just what's happening.
yes,
Something like that. I'm not
yes,
expressing it very well, but in that way, it almost sort of links into eat whatever they offer you. You can heal their sick, perhaps by example at least. Accept
mm,
whatever's coming to them as well.
yes, maybe that is a great it is a great challenge, isn't it, to suffering and um and accepting it. I think we
Hmm.
touched on something really, really deep there. I'm wondering about the time, Malcolm, actually.
Yeah, perhaps we should
Um,
wind up. Um,
yes,
should we have a final reading
yes,
now then?
yes, we don't have a lot of time to um, put a lot of time between the readings, but I guess we'll do what we can, shall we?
Yeah.
So, so,
So shall I start then? I think
yes, and
you started last time.
okay,
So I'll do 11 and 12 and you do 13 and 14 and then
okay.
we'll wind up the recording.
Mm-hmm.
Yeshua said, the sky will pass away and the one above it will also pass away. The dead have no life and the living have no death. On days when you ate what was dead, you made it alive. When you are in the light, what will you do? When you were one, you created two. But now that you are two, what will you do? The disciples said to Yeshua, we know that you will leave us. Who will be great among us then? Yeshua told them, when you find yourselves at that point, go to James the Just. All that concerns heaven and earth is his domain.
Yeshua said to his disciples, what am I like for you? To what would you compare me? Simon Peter said, you are like a righteous angel. Matthew said, you are like a wise philosopher. Thomas said, Master, my mouth could never utter what you are like. Yeshua told him, I am no longer your master, because you have drunk and become drunken from the same bubbling source from which I spring. Then he took him aside and said 3 words to him. When Thomas returned to his companions, they questioned him, what did Yeshua tell you? Thomas answered, if I told you even one of the things he said to me, you would pick up stones and throw them at me, and fire would come out of those stones and consume you. Yeshua said to them, if you fast, you will be at fault. If you pray, you will be wrong. If you give to charity, you will corrupt your mind. When you go into any
Joe,
land,
it's quite distorted what you're
oh,
saying. Some of it you can't pick up. I don't know if it's because you're looking down or
oh,
just from 14.
I'll try 14 again. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. Yeshua said to them, if you fast, you will be at fault. If you pray, you will be wrong. If you give to charity, you will corrupt your mind. When you go into any land and walk through the countryside, if they welcome you, eat whatever they offer you. You can heal their sick. It is not what goes into your mouth that defiles you. It is what comes out of your mouth that defiles you.
Let's take a few minutes and then we'll hear those verses one more time. But now just let the words, the feelings that are rising in you, just let them be there. No need to think. And just be here. I'll read the text one more time. Yeshua said, "The sky will pass away, and the one above it will also pass away. The dead have no life, and the living have no death. On days when you ate what was dead, you made it alive. When you are in the light, what will you do? When you were one, you created two. But now that you are two, what will you do? The disciples said to Yeshua, "We know that you will leave us. Who will be great among us then?" Yeshua told them, "When you find yourselves at that point, go to James, the just. All that concerns heaven and earth is his domain." Yeshua said to his disciples, "What am I like for you? To what would you compare me?" Simon Peter said, "You are like a righteous angel." Matthew said, "You are like a wise philosopher." Thomas said, "Master, my mouth could never utter what you are like." Yeshua told him, "I am no longer your master, because you have drunk and become drunken from the same bubbling source from which I spring." Then he took him aside and said 3 words to him. When Thomas returned to his companions, they questioned him, "What did Yeshua tell you?" Thomas answered, "If I told you even one of the things he said to me, you would pick up stones and throw them at me, and fire would come out of those stones and consume you." Yeshua said to them, "If you fast, you will be at fault. If you pray, you will be wrong. If you give to charity, you will corrupt your mind. When you go into any land and walk through the countryside, if they welcome you, eat whatever they offer you. You can heal their sick. It is not what goes into your mouth that defiles you. It is what comes out of your mouth that defiles you."